today I'm going to be working right by the house, at the back of the house here. This area is south facing and I've not done too much fussing with it. But what I have done is I've planted 3 clipped box so that when all of this is cut back today, it's going to look very pleasing to the eye and tidy as well and have a little bit of structure. And you can see that huge rosemary at the back. That was here when we came and is doing really well. And I quite like it actually because it just gives a bit of a backbone to the border. Scattered throughout this border are these gorgeous towering fennel. And you can see there's just a few at the back there as well. And they're all ready to be cut back to the ground. And they'll come back again this year. And they do look really striking in this border. Another thing here, this little clump, this is Crocosmia lucifer. Then I've got some irises just in here. Then I've got just here, you can still see a little bit at the base. This is golden marjoram, which seems to have morphed itself here and there. Then I've just got like a Michaelmas daisy that comes up, which is really pretty. I've got some lavender, a few bits and pieces that come up as well. I've also got this giant Cephalaria as well. It's like a giant scabious. I've got another one here just on the front, which I don't mind it being there. It doesn't bother me very much, and I quite like having things that jut out. And if we look a bit closer, just down here, these are nerines that come up quite a bit later on in the season, and they're really, really pretty. I've got some geraniums, some more lavender, more iris here. And then I've got this. This is an olive. And the story behind this is it was given to me as a Christmas present. You get them supermarkets, only about this big. And I'm afraid any houseplant that's given to me, I kill it. Don't ask me how, but I probably kill it with kindness or total neglect. One or the other. And I thought to myself, I don't want to kill this, and olive trees are going to be better off in the garden. And I knew this was south facing and it would be dry and get all the sun. So we just planted it in here and left it to get on with it. It's leaning towards the sun. We haven't staked it and we really should. And there's a part of me that is tempted to move it and put it in the walled garden, and it might actually thrive a bit better in there than in here. But it's alive, and that's the main thing. It's not looking fantastic, but it's not going to at this time of year. So we're just going to leave it be for the minute. This is a helianthus, and it was given to me. Very, very pretty yellow flower, as you would see a helianthus as the sunflower helianthus. But this is the perennial variety, and it comes quite late to the show, round about sort of August, September time, and it's really, really pretty and lights up this section of the garden. It's just lovely. This is going to be cut right back to the ground as well, and I can see it's got a nice little clump there and it's looking very happy. I don't top dress it. I don't give it very much of my time. I just come in here now, cut back, tidy it up, and then leave it to its own devices, because I think it's quite important to have certain parts of the garden that you don't need to mollycoddle too much. And this part of the garden certainly doesn't get that. And I don't look at it very much either. I think if it was a part of the garden that I looked at all the time, every day, like the front, the house garden, that to me is quite important to keep maintained and looking tidy and clipped or whatever. But this part, I don't see it all the time. So I can shut it out of my head and just open the door and look out and feel quite happy about it. And I do find once the crab apples start to blossom and the trees start to change leaf colour, I do tend to come out the back a little bit more. And I find that with parts of the garden, there are certain parts that really come into their own at different times of the year. Well, I'm going to get on with this and get it looking tidy. Tom and I really love this part of the garden because it's kind of a normal sized section that would be most people's sized garden. And it's really easy to look after and maintain. And we thought long and hard about how we design it, especially with the crab apples and the clipped beech. There's lots of stories to tell in here as well. We also call this the Hall Garden because it is sandwiched between our house and Llanrydder Hall. And it seemed appropriate to give it that name. As this garden has become bigger and bigger in areas that we've created, we've always had to try and come up with a name that we can refer to. Right, let's get this looking nice and tidy. Oh, that took a bit of work. Oh. Now, it all looked quite brutal, but it looks a lot tidier, and I can see, and I also get reminded of what else is coming up in here. I've got some aqualegias, I've got some geranium, I've got some garlic chives, and a few other little bits. I think I've got some Nepeta, and what else was there? Anyway, so as I'm going through all of this, I just think, oh yes, that's coming up, and it really gets me quite excited. And in the summer, this is bulging with life, and all of the plants I've literally just planted in here and kind of forgotten about. They've had a little bit of a drink in the first year, and that is it. I've just left them to it and then cut them back around this time of year, around the beginning of March. But looking at the rosemary is getting a little bit out of control, and it is just starting to jut above this iris here. So what I'm going to do is just chop away that section that's going to be a bit of a pain where the iris is coming up. But the best time to hard prune a rosemary is in the winter. So I'm going to have to sit tight and wait until this winter. So I probably might wait until, say, I don't know, maybe December. And then I can really give it a real good hard and push it back against the wall again, put it back in its box. And then come the spring, which is now, I'll get some nice fresh new growth. And I'll bring you back with me when I come to do that much later on this year. But in the meantime, I am going to I might use, what should I use? I might just use, I've got some loppers with me actually, and I'll just chop this off here. Might not look great, but once everything flowers and starts coming through, it will be absolutely fine. I've chopped away. There's some nice fresh shoots which I'll cut and have in the house, because rosemary, not only does it smell nice, it's very good to stimulate memory. So it's quite handy to have a bit of a pot full by your bed and in the kitchen, around the place. Now that is better. I can see that my iris here isn't too crowded and I'll be able to enjoy the flowers. Okay. Now I won't be putting any of the top dressing on here because I like to leave it to just do its thing, and everything in here thrives in dry conditions, and if I go top dressing it, they're not going to like it because they prefer to have this, it's quite stony, this ground, and I just leave it to be as it is without any extra help at all. That is the beauty of this border, actually. I don't have to do much to it. Right, well, I'm definitely ready for a cup of tea. I have another section where the crab apples are that I'm going to tackle next, which I'll show you. I'll see you in a bit. Well, feeling much better and definitely refreshed after that cup of tea. Now the next part I'm going to work on is here, underneath these crab apples. Not long after we had planted and pleach trained these Malus Everest crab apples, I wanted to soften everything underneath. And the one plant that stood out to me, because this is a dry space as well, was the Erigeron Covinciensis. I knew this plant would be a prolific self-seeder, so I only needed to plant up a handful in here, and before long it had seeded itself around the place, and then I plucked out the seedlings and increased them tenfold. Now is the perfect time to be cutting it back. So we are in early March here in the UK. It's a nice mild day, and all of this needs to be cut away to get it looking a lot tidier. And we can see there's lots of new growth coming up underneath. And then once I've done that, I will then assess how much has self-sown. And what I might do is pot some up and also replace any bare patches where some of them may have died along the way. This is a very simple, straightforward job, and all I need to do is just dig into this clump to the base where we can actually see the plant underneath, and just cut away all of that old growth from last year to reveal this nice new growth that we're going to get this year. And don't worry if you cut a few bits off accidentally. We just want to get back to that nice new growth. And you can also see that there's an extra one here, which will be a baby from, probably from this one, seeded around. And we'll do the same again here. And here it is. And we can now see all the new growth coming through, and it looks a lot tidier. And before long, there'll be lots more new growth, and it'll start to fill out this area fairly quickly. Well, I think I've got quite a lot to get through here. There are also some fennel that's seeded itself in here, which I don't mind. I quite like having a few random bits coming up around the place, and I'll be cutting those right to the ground as well. While I'm getting on with this, I'll take you to have a quick sneaky look at what Tom's up to inside the walled garden. He's been carving out the brand new borders along the south wall. Here is our first area that's been scraped back and dug out with the pathways running into the borders, which then creates these island beds. We've got an island bed here and one just further on right next to the plane tree canopy. Almost straight away, it really feels like it's starting to become a whole new area. When we very first planted up this whole area, we visited a garden in Halifax that had lots of grasses, and I specifically tried to choose plants that would be happy in these conditions, in dry, sunny, and we've planted one of everything that we like the look of in here to let them adapt, see how they perform, and then hopefully now they've clumped out a little bit, so there are some grasses and varying plants. I've got a list of them somewhere. And then what I can do is dig them up, divide them, and then put them across into here and keep my fingers crossed that they'll be happy. Just here as well, I've got two Stipa giganteas opposite each other. They were given to us, cost us nothing. In fact, we were given one in a great big pot that we've divided and split. Now they've grown a lot more, we can now dig these up and split them and move them into here as well. And that is the joy that I love about gardening, is that we can just keep on splitting, dividing, and anything else that is in and around the whole garden, I can just pluck them out and pop them in here and see how everything works and performs. I've also got some fennel, alliums. I'm hoping the fennel will seed itself around over the coming years, and then I can just edit things here and there as time goes by. It's going to look and feel a lot different when these pathways are defined with the gravel. And also, I'm going for planting that will jut out onto the pathways as well, that will soften everything. We can see the iris here. My plan is to divide this and put some along here and maybe further along that will just carry the eye through these beds. So this iris is being put in here for the minute, but again we'll be dividing it and shifting it further into the other border along here. It's all really taking shape quite rapidly. All done. Well, not 100%. I still need to come back in here and pluck out some of these seedlings within the cobbles. To think when I only planted about 5 in here, and now I have hundreds that I can pluck out, pot up and use somewhere else in the garden, or give to friends, or replace ones that aren't doing so well in here. I'd like to say a very big thank you for watching. I hope this has been useful to you, and I will see you next time for some more gardening jobs. Bye.